Okay, so we're going to look at the chapter 4, the chapter on carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is really kind of one of my favorite things to talk about. We talk about this in the PowerPoint, but read up on page 89 specifically about how carbohydrates are made. So carbohydrates are made from plants by the sun's energy, and CO2, and that's really cool. When you think about the big tree outside your window, that those plants pulled the carbon dioxide directly from the air using the sun's power and made carbohydrate from those. The structural blocks of that tree were actually literally pulled from the air, which is pretty cool. But do understand that plants make the carbohydrates using the sun and the CO2. All right. Make sure you understand the difference between monosaccharides and disaccharides and polysaccharides. So mono and disaccharides are simple carbohydrates. Polysaccharides are complex carbohydrates. Understand that. Understand that fiber and what fiber does, the fact that it's non-digestible. Understand also about glycogen, and that is the storage form of carbohydrate in animals. We store it in our muscles and our liver. Okay. Understand in general how carbohydrates are digested. I'm going to might ask you a question about lactose maldigestion, how some people cannot digest milk sugar, so that's very important. Read this section on insulin and how blood glucose is regulated. Blood glucose is so important because your brain and central nervous system have to have glucose. If you don't have enough glucose in your system, in your blood, your brain and central nervous system have a very hard time operating. So read up on that. That's very important. Pancreas is very important. That you'll read about two hormones. You'll read about insulin and glucagon. Now, insulin and glucagon, understand, have completely opposite effects. Insulin helps bring glucose into the cell, right? And it brings down blood sugar. Glucagon has completely the opposite effect. What glucagon does is glucagon tells your liver to release blood sugar and make your blood sugar go up. And that's really important because we've got to maintain the proper levels of blood sugar. Something also really cool and very important about that is we talked about how glycogen is the storage form of glucose, and when it's stored in your muscles, it has to be used there, cannot go back out into the blood. Once glycogen is stored in the liver is very special, and it can release that glycogen back out. So only the liver can release the glycogen back out. The muscles cannot. Okay. Talk about the minimum daily amount of carbohydrates you need, the best places to find carbohydrates, the difference between natural and artificially occurring sugars. So understand that a molecule of, say, fructose, which is a simple sugar found in a soda or found in a piece of fruit, the molecule is exactly the same. But it's the other things that do or do not come with that molecule that are important. And your book gives an example of a candy orange versus a real orange. So read up on that. Also, make sure you read the web article that I've posted for you from the LA Times on sugars and sodas versus sugars and juice. That's very important. Read about added sugars and understand that added sugars and artificial sugars are not the same thing. Okay, so we read about artificial sweeteners. I'm not going to ask you a whole lot of questions about these, except do know that they're generally regarded as safe. My personal opinion on the artificial sugars, the artificial sweeteners, is that they, basically they're not going to hurt you if you don't overdo it. I wouldn't recommend drinking 12 Diet Cokes or 12 regular Cokes every day, but one of either one is probably not that bad for you, and that's kind of my personal opinion. Okay. Read about fiber and why fiber is important and how it helps prevent heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. Okay, read about diabetes. Understand that difference between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is a type of diabetes that's an immunological disorder. Basically, it's a disorder that you can't do anything about. Type 2 diabetes is frequently associated with obesity, and sometimes it can completely go away when people lose a bunch of weight. So it's more related to lifestyle factors. Not always. Some people that live healthy will still get type 2 diabetes, but it's more related to obesity and lifestyle. Okay. So preventing 2 diabetes. I'm not going to ask you any questions about hypoglycemia. All right. Again, here at the end of the chapter, top 10 points to remember. test your knowledge. You got those down, you'll do pretty well.